And we are live. Welcome to the TryPod World Cup punting preview. And it's match day 3, the third round of group matches kick off tonight. Can you believe half the matches of this World Cup have already been played? How scary is that? But one thing we do know is the stakes now get higher and higher with every single round of matches. And half the teams are playing their final match in the next 4 days. We've got 4 games every night, different time frames, with games in every group being played concurrently now, so that nobody gets an advantage in terms of knowing what result they may need. And that adds an extra level of intrigue to it as well. Tom, first of all, we'll talk about how we did in the last round of games. So I'll throw to you for your results, check how you're doing, and if you're not too sleep deprived so far.
Yeah, so round just gone. Went 3 out of 8. So obviously not what we wanted. Started quite well with the Iran double chance. Then we missed out on a few ones, like I think Denmark. We went Denmark double chance, and Denmark conceded a late goal, and then Uruguay let us down, as well as Belgium. A few close calls in there, but given how some of the results went this week, I'm not too disappointed with 3 out of 8. It would have been nice to go 4 out of 8 and scrape break even, but on to the next one.
I mean, 3 out of 8 is not that bad, though, because 2 of those winners were $2.50 odds at least. I can't remember now, maybe under 2.5 goals in the Brazil game.
Yeah.
And maybe Argentina win to 0. You had somebody win to 0. That was
Those were the
250.
two,
And,
yeah.
Yeah. And look, Argentina scored 2 goals as well for the mixed matchup. So we were a favourite going into the Croatia game. And then Croatia conceded a goal about 60 seconds in. And that then set up a mindset for them to play attacking football the rest of the way. And they ended up, I think they scored late and they ended up with 4. So I think they had 2 by halftime. So we lost our mixed matchup after winning the previous one. And the other thing that rubs salt into the wound, you picked Canada to score a goal in the opening game. They had 22 shots, didn't score. And then if they scored, as I just said before, 68 seconds into their second game. Of course they did. I didn't share any other official tips. I was kind of riding the mixed matchup. I was riding some futures, I tipped Qatar to make the second round, and that did not go well. Morocco, that's looking much better. South Korea. So I felt like there was a lot at stake. Mixed matchup. I had some leans. If I'd shared my leans in the group thread, like I did look each day, had I shared leans, I wouldn't have gone that great. I had, some that didn't go my way, a couple that did. So all in all, I guess I'm still on a winning streak from the official tips. I think I won my last 5 in a row. So again, I'm going to share kind of day by day, but I'm certainly going to tell you what I'm looking at in each game. We're just going to talk a little bit more about match day 2, as I want to ask you your 1 or 2 major highlights that you enjoyed so far in the last week of football.
Yeah, I think for me, the 2 moments that I enjoyed the most, I think the Iran Wales game, just seeing the joy of the Iranian players at the end. I thought they played absolutely fantastic throughout that match, and I thought they got their just rewards at the end, and so that was a really epic way to see that match end. It looked like it might peter out to a 0-0, but then they scored that stunning goal, and then they got that second one at the very end. And then I think I'd probably have to go with Lionel Messi's goal to break the deadlock. I think everyone in world football has a soft spot for Lionel Messi, and I think no one really wants to see him go out, early in this tournament. And it felt like that was going to happen. And, you saw the relief on his face when he put that one in the back of the net. So that was a really special moment, I think, for the tournament.
I kind of had both of them noted. For me, this morning, one of the most enjoyable matches of the tournament had to be Cameroon-Serbia. And that game flipped a couple of times. Cameroon looked like they were going to go in 1-0 up. Next thing, Serbia back-to-back goals and were leading 2-1 at the break. And then Serbia comes out and walks it in and gets up 3-1. And it looks like it's going to be a rout and Serbia's going to win easily. Not so fast. Cameroon breaks away. And what I loved about this, the Cameroon's second and third goals, breakaways, particularly the second goal, looked 2 or 3 meters offside. And this is actually, there's been a lot of conjecture and a lot of criticism, and we don't always love VAR. And I kind of hate the fact that sometimes a goal is scored and you can't fully celebrate. You got to hold your breath. But they let it play out. They let the Cameroon striker get through, have a 1-on-1. I almost felt like he finished it so nonchalant, scooping over the keeper in the back of his mind, thinking he was offside. And the ref or the linesman judged it offside. VAR checks it, and he is slightly on. He's timed his run to perfection. He was just that fast. He looked off. It's a goal that gets him back in the game. They score again from another break that looked offside but was cleanly onside, and it's 3-3. And I believe when you're looking at all these odds, which I am every day, one market you'll notice is each team to score in each half. And I've seen that paying 20, 30 to 1. And I was thinking, I don't think that's happened once in this World Cup, but it happened in that game this morning. So that was exciting. And I'm going to shout out as well, 6 teams. We talked about how one game doesn't define your tournament. 6 teams in match day 2 who lost the opening match, turned it around and won. So those 6 teams, Senegal, they had much easier competition. They beat the hosts. They actually knocked out the hosts. Again, my Qatar tip was a dud. Iran, you mentioned, and what an absolute stunning goal they did score. And it was in like the 90th minute, and a well-deserved win over Wales after they were thumped in the opening game. They turned it around. You mentioned Argentina turned their tournament around, and both those goals were fantastic. And of course, Messi putting the team on his back. Costa Rica, how about them? 7-0 opening game, and Japan beat Germany. And then Costa Rica turns that around and gets a 1-0 win. Got to give them a shout out. And Ghana this morning also, after losing their opener, beat South Korea in a thrilling game. That was 3-2. Oh, one other team lost their opening game and won the second one. The Socceroos. We have to give them a shout out. Let us know what you guys thought of that. That is fantastic, and it sets it all up in exactly where you want to be from an Australian perspective, coming down to the final game with the upper hand against Denmark. We'll get to that. And in fact, we will get to all the games that are going to decide these groups. But let's just get a tiny bit more recap from a punting perspective and set the table for these games. Thanks to the show's Top Sport, we've got a little intel from Tristan.
Hello punters, Tristan Merlahan here from Top Sport, and we're getting into the last batch of group games for the World Cup, and it's been a fascinating tournament. There's been some very strange results. There's been a few dominant teams, progress well, i.e. Brazil and Spain have obviously started well up until their game against Germany as well. So it's been a lot of action on some multis, and it's been fascinating to watch how the back and forth has changed, where there was a lot of support for the overs in the early part of the tournament. Now the money just starts to be looking like it's swinging towards punters taking the unders options more so, just with how the other tournaments unfolded to date. Probably one of our biggest results was the Belgium-Morocco game. There was a lot of multis rolling into Belgium, and then of course, obviously that early big upset in the tournament where Saudi Arabia upset Argentina. They were our 2 biggest results by a significant margin. Punters were all over Spain when they won comfortably. They were all over Portugal when they won well, and also Brazil. So it's been an up and down tournament, but just the way the matches have fallen with the 4 games on each night, it's really been conducive to multis from our perspective. Then we're sort of just looking for one of those upsets, which we've been fortunate enough to get on a lot of the nights. So, but we're moving into the big games now. The tricky part now is just to look at a few of the teams, like if France Tunisia won, for example, where maybe France might not play their full strength side. Those sort of scenarios now that we're looking at what some of the other games might do to other matches too. So probably the biggest moves of the next game has actually been, there's been a bit of support for Iran plus the half goal. Obviously USA need to win that match to get through, and they opened up at around about the high $1.80 marks. They're out to even money now with us. So there's been a bit of support for Iran at the plus there. And then the other game that has seen a bit of movement has actually been France, just tightening up a little bit. Tunisia was $7, they're out to 8, so that would probably indicate that France are going to play a good majority of their side. So looking forward to the weekend coming up, or the week of games coming up. Hopefully the Socceroos can get the job done and proceed through to the next round. Gamble responsibly if you're having a fun.
Thanks, Tristan. I don't think he'd be nervous yet about the 26-1, but he could be. That's going to be on the line tonight. That's Group B. Let's talk Group A first. I'm going to set the table with what's at stake, or do my best. Obviously, there's heaps of permutations, but I'm going to try and simplify as best I can, and then throw to you, Tom, to tell us how you see these matches. Group A, Ecuador are top, so they just need to match Netherlands' result, and they will, and that being a draw or a win, and they will top the group. Whereas Senegal must win their game most likely, and that would then allow them to take Ecuador's place in the knockout stages, assuming that Netherlands are going to beat Qatar. But is that your assumption? And how do you see this deciding clash between Ecuador and Senegal?
Yeah, so Ecuador, Senegal is essentially a knockout game for both sides. If if there is to be a winner. Obviously, Ecuador get through if there's a draw. Netherlands just need to get a point in their game. So I won't really be having much of a watch of the Netherlands-Qatar game. I think the Ecuador-Senegal game, before this tournament, I would have leaned heavily towards Senegal. However, I've watched them play twice now, and they've actually really disappointed me. Ecuador, I think, have been really good. Quite unlucky not to beat the Dutch, perhaps Ecuador, in a game where Senegal are going to have to go for it and open up at some point in time. I do lean towards Ecuador. However, Senegal do have a lot of fighting spirit and they do have heart, but their performance against Qatar really didn't inspire me. I thought that scoreline of 3-1 might have even flattered Senegal a tiny bit. Qatar did have a good solid 15-20 minutes in the second half. I don't have an official play on this, but I think if you're thinking of having a punt on this one, perhaps even maybe a live bet on these type of games. And the reason why you might do a live bet on a game of this nature is if it's 0-0 after 60 minutes, you might get, say, Ecuador paying $5, Senegal's like $4, and the draw might be $1.20. Senegal are going to have to go for it at one point, and that might open up space. So that's a potential way of playing these games. But obviously, that involves you having to be awake at 1 a.m. in the morning. So that's the other side of it.
Now, only other thing I'll add to that is Senegal also were unlucky not to beat the Netherlands. Even though they went down 2-0, they were every bit in that match. So I really can't split those sides. I think it's going to be an absolute beauty. And I should say our 26-1 is also on the line with this group because we need Netherlands to top the group. Now, while they're not top at the moment, because the Netherlands are most likely going to beat Qatar, they've got the opportunity to make up a goal and goal difference that would get them above Ecuador. But if Ecuador wins, Netherlands will have to win by a larger margin than Ecuador does. And that could be problematic for us. As you said, if Ecuador gets in front and Senegal's got to chase the game, it could open up. So we're not a certainty, but we've still got decent odds on Netherlands to top the group, and they have got the easier match in front of them. And the other thing is Ecuador also may just be happy to progress. And if they're level with Senegal, they may not take any risks either. Let's move to Group B, where we have our 26-1 on the line as well with USA-Iran, which is the next game that we'll discuss. The other game in this group is England and Wales. I'll try and pull up the graphic as always, but I will let you guys know that here it is. So England needs to win, or if there's a draw in the USA-Iran game, England will probably top the group. They're basically already through. Iran needs a draw or a win to get through, whereas USA only a win will do against Iran. And you did tip that pre-tournament, Tom, USA to progress, which was right around the same odds they are now, about even money or maybe 210. But how confident do you feel based on where they're sitting?
Yeah, I still think the US are a much stronger side than the results have necessarily shown. And I think head-to-head, they are a better side than Iran. The question for me is, how did the USA handle the pressure? There's been a lot made of how strong this US team is. A lot of pundits across the world are saying that this is the strongest American side that there's ever been. I would tend to agree with that. I think they're playing at a strong level across Europe, a lot of their players. I thought they were really impressive against England. They were pretty impressive against Wales in the first 45 minutes. On the balance of what I've seen, I think the players that are in the midfield for the USA have got the ability to really get after Iran and cause them problems. I've actually got a best bet of the USA to win. I've got to stick with what I thought before the tournament, and I haven't seen anything really to change my mind. As good as Iran were against Wales, that was something that that was a tip that I gave out. And the thinking there was ultimately that was more of a play against Wales. I think Iran are a solid side, but I think the USA are a good side. So you can get $2.05 at a few bookies for the USA to win this one, and I'm going to take that.
And so you said you're not a big believer in Wales. Then do you expect that England takes care of business? There was a lot of criticism that they were so conservative against the US, and the player of the tournament couldn't even get on the field. And that is, of course, Phil Foden. And I was just doing soul searching, going, geez, I've spoken about this guy, how important he is to England, one of their best, if not their best player, or, you know, right up there with Harry Kane in terms of talent, and how important he's going to be to their campaign. Have I just got this totally wrong? But every single analyst, pundit, expert all said the same thing as well after the game. How do you not put him on the field? So that's been the talk. Do you think they're going to use him in this one? And do you think they're going to get it done?
Yeah, the Phil Foden debate to me is nonsensical. It is actually crazy that he doesn't have a spot in the England starting 11. To me, he would start for pretty much every team in this tournament, bar maybe Brazil and maybe France. So it's actually crazy he can't get a go for England. I think he won't start tonight, just because Gareth Southgate's a very defensive manager. I think he'll take the approach of let's just try to get on top of Wales in the first 45 minutes with what we've got. If we need to get a goal, to get a victory, I think he'll bring him on. And I think he'll bring him on maybe around the 55, 60-minute mark. I don't think Southgate will leave him off like he did on Saturday morning. I think Southgate was actually quite happy to take the point. Basically, the way the group is now, England might possibly only need a draw, depending on how that USA-Iran game goes. And the way this game is likely to go, the Welsh can still get through, but it requires them to win, I think, by about 3 or 4 goals. So the Welsh are going to have to go for it. And England are at their best generally when teams attack them because of the pace that they've got up front. So I don't really like the chances of Wales. Wales haven't really created any chances this tournament. I actually think England will win this game, and I think they'll win it to 0. And that's the best bet that I'm going to play.
I'm there with you. I think England win. I mean, put it this way, though. If Wales are up 1, like by chance with 20 to go, I think that beating England at a World Cup is a pretty significant historic moment. I don't think they're going to be saying, throw everyone forward, let's try and win by 4 and get through, to be fair. So it's a different story if they somehow were up 2 or 3. Like at that point, yeah, you can chase. But realistically, this would be their World Cup final. And for England, they don't want to muck around. I guess they'll know who their opponent could be, and you probably want to avoid Netherlands. That might be some thinking and some calculations as well. We'll move on to I guess we'll go Group D now because, is that right? No, or is Australia Group C?
No, Australia's Group D, but Australia
Group D, right? But they've got that order. Yeah. So we'll talk about Group D, which is the Aussie group. And those games that we just discussed were 1 or 2 a.m., depending on daylight savings, tonight, and then 5, 6 a.m. So they're all kind of Wednesday morning games. And now we move to Thursday morning where the Socceroos will play Denmark. You probably know what's at stake. Australia, having beaten Tunisia, only needs a draw to progress, which is a pretty decent position to be in, albeit Denmark is still $1.48 favourites. France virtually have topped this group and Tunisia virtually out. So it's really all about that top clash on the screen and whether the Aussies can get a point or more and get through for only the second time in Australia's history.
Yeah, this is a huge moment for Australian football. Like you say, it would be a chance to make it the second time through to the knockout stage, which would be quite incredible considering how written off this team was. I think the Danes haven't performed at the level they were expecting to. Obviously, against Tunisia, I think they're a bit nervous. They didn't really get into gear. Against France, I think they actually played quite well in patches. They actually had a really good chance late on. In France, the game was 1-1, and the Danish striker just put the ball wide of the goal, and that would have made it 2-1 with about 5 or 10 minutes to go. I do think that France probably would have found an equaliser just because of the star power of Kylian Mbappe. But I do think the Danes have played a bit better than maybe what their results show, in the sense that they weren't actually that far off getting a result against the French. However, this type of game is a really pressurised one for Denmark. It doesn't matter how good they are on paper. They're playing against a team who've got something to hold on to and something to defend. If this was like a Premier League game where you've got a team who are around, 4th versus a team who are 15th, you would always be backing the team that are 4th. And that's probably the similar type of comparison what you've got here in terms of the odds that you'd see. But this is a one-off cup final. Australia just have to be brave for 90 minutes and then they'll be through to the next round. I do think Australia are going to have to score a goal, though, just because I don't see Australia keeping a clean sheet. Everyone heard the stat on Saturday night that it was their first clean sheet in 48 years. I think this Danish side are too good to keep out. The other thing that makes me a bit worried for Australia is the Danes were actually in a similar position in the last Euros. They went into that last game of the Euros and they needed to win to go through to the next round, and they got a 4-1 victory. That was in their own country in Copenhagen, so they did have the crowd support behind them, but they do have a lot of experience. They're going up against an Australian side who did show a fair few nerves in the last 20, 30 minutes in terms of the game management. So I do think Australia have to be positive. I don't think Australia can sit back and go for the 0-all. I think if they do that, they're going to find themselves a goal down, and then they're going to have to really have a crack for it. So I think Australia have to try to play positive football. And if they play positive football, I think they've shown that they've got the ability to create chances.
I agree with that. I think they should look at how the game against Tunisia went and appreciate that Tunisia had a lot of really close chances throughout the final 20 minutes. And as heroic and special as that win was for Australia, Tunisia so easily could have broken our hearts. And we did kind of just sit back and absorb a lot of pressure. And another side, maybe with more class, would have taken one of those chances. So you need a bit of luck to go your way. Aussies will probably need that. The other stat that was thrown around was how it was Australia's first win in 12 years. And I feel like that doesn't even tell you the whole story, because when Australia did win 12 years ago, it was against Serbia. It was match day 3 of the group stage, but it was a scenario where we needed to have won by an extra goal or two, or needed a couple extra goals in the concurrent match to get through. So it was kind of a bittersweet win. It didn't feel nearly as joyful as what it was on Saturday night, beating Tunisia as underdogs and setting up this scenario. Any thoughts on France-Tunisia? This is one of a handful of occasions where a team is almost locked to top their group. So you've got to wonder how many minutes the best players are going to play, and maybe just that's a caution for people who are putting some of these strong favourites in their multis.
Yeah, I think this game, France and Tunisia, a lot of people will probably be a bit hesitant to take France just because of the situation that they're in. There is one other way of looking at it and saying that if the French do put in a few bench players, those bench players are going to want to send a reminder to the manager that, hey, I'm here, give us a run. So there is that. Tunisia have played 2 games so far. They haven't scored a goal. They haven't really, there has been a few close calls, but I do think Tunisia lack a bit of quality. I can only see a French win here. I think even the French 4th or 5th choice team would beat Tunisia. But having seen how the last week or so has gone, I'd probably just leave it.
I think you make a good point there, that even if it's like second stringers, the depth of the French side, you actually might have more highly motivated players and players that aren't worried about getting injured. We move to Group C. It's the same morning. It's a couple hours later, so Thursday morning. What's at stake? Poland will top this group with a win, or if they draw and Mexico gets a result against Saudi Arabia, Argentina will top it with a win. Argentina and Poland meet. Saudi Arabia will qualify with a win or a draw if Argentina lose. Mexico needs to win and Argentina lose, or at least Argentina win and Mexico win and make up a big goal difference. So they've got the toughest task. Well, they're maybe not the toughest opponent, but top place is probably going to be decided based on what happens in Poland, Argentina. And Argentina got back on track in the second match day. Tom, did you like what you saw there, and you expect they're going to go on with it?
Yeah, look, with Argentina, I wasn't overly convinced with how they played. I thought that first 45 minutes, they were absolutely atrocious against Mexico. I think they only put about 4 or 5 passes together going forward. However, in the second half, they did show their class. I do think Poland aren't a really strong side. Poland, truth be told, could have quite easily fallen behind against Saudi Arabia. They gave up a number of really good opportunities, and against a better side, they would have conceded a few. Their second goal was virtually gifted to them. So I'm not really that big on Poland. I think before the tournament, if you got these odds, you would have been all over Argentina. I think Argentina across the park are a lot better side. I think Lionel Messi, he's going to go into this game with the attitude of we need to win. He won't be leaving it to chance to get a draw. So I really like Argentina again to win 2-0. It was good to me last week. So I'm going to go again with that as a best bet.
And let me introduce the mixed matchup, which feeds into the other game, again, played simultaneously. So I don't know if people are going to get the two screen setup because it's hard to kind of watch one game without the context of the other. And that certainly applies in this group. Like there's a chance Saudi Arabia could still top this group if they upset Mexico and Poland and Argentina play out a draw. And you, in fact, do give Saudi Arabia a chance. And that has factored in to the mixed matchup, which I will introduce right now. And just pull that comment off the screen so we can read it. England to score more goals than Mexico in the third match day at $2.75 on TopSport. You can have up to 200 on that. And if you need a TopSport account, you can use the code TryPod. And $2.75 is the price that we won with in the opening round of matches. Of course, we said we didn't get the chocolates last game. The reasoning we like England against Wales, they've been criticised for not attacking enough and not executing that end of the pitch against the USA. So they might take some of those frustrations out and kind of flex their muscles against Wales. We think they can put up, a couple of goals, maybe more. And then Mexico are favourites against Saudi Arabia. But Tom, you can explain why you think the Saudis can keep it close. And Mexico are yet to score at this World Cup either. And we're not sure they've got a lot of goals in them necessarily.
Yeah, I've seen both of the Mexico games now. I've watched a replay of both of them again, and I just don't really see where the goals are coming from for Mexico. They seem like an incredibly negative side. They could score one, but the problem is I just think the nature of the way this game's going to go is they're going to have to actually push at some point. And the problem for them is I think Saudi Arabia have actually got a few goals in them themselves. And Saudi Arabia could quite possibly have scored 2 or 3 against Poland if they're finishing and being on. So yeah, that's essentially the thinking. It saddens me to make that bet because I was really big on Mexico before the tournament. I actually had them as one of my best bets. But for them to go through from here would require probably a 3 or 4-0 victory. And then I think they might even need another result to go their way. So unfortunately for the Mexicans, I think they're going to go for a bit of a transition stage after this World Cup.
Let's move to Group E, and Spain is another side in that scenario where they're virtually already they're virtually already through. They do need a win to make sure they top this group. The other 3 are all in it. So Japan must beat Spain to get through, or else hope that Costa Rica doesn't lose to Germany, which is probably not likely. Costa Rica can get through if they do beat Germany, and Germany need to win to get through and hope Japan doesn't win. So all these results affect each other. But just the fact that Germany, and especially Germany, but also Spain, are reasonably short favourites makes you feel like that Germany's dodged a bit of a bullet. And this has been created by the fact that Japan wasted a huge opportunity after upsetting the Germans, then falling to defeat to Costa Rica when they were $1.40 favourites. Had they got something out of that match, the equation would be more favourable for them in this one. But now, the 2 smaller countries in this group that weren't expected to qualify will need to probably beat the big boys they're playing against to get through. Do you think either of them have a chance?
Costa Rica, no. Japan, it would take a performance of a lifetime, I think, for them to get a victory. I wasn't that big on Spain before this World Cup, and I'm still not overly convinced, but they have grown in my assessment. I think Japan, their result against Germany and their performance in that second half was really strong. But then that performance against Costa Rica was it was almost cowardly. They went into that game thinking, we're just going to win. We just need to get off the team bus and we'll win 2 or 3-0. The lack of urgency and effort and application shown in the first half was really concerning. I think Spain for them is a bit of a problem matchup. The Spanish are really good in that midfield. They've got a lot of experience, in the coaching ranks, the Spanish. So I think it's going to be a difficult one for Japan. And I think Japan's emotional point of view right now, I would have hated to have seen what they would have been like in the dressing room after that Costa Rica result. I just wonder if Japan can actually pick themselves back up off the canvas. So I don't give them a chance. I think Costa Rica, they played their World Cup final. They had one shot, one goal. That very rarely happens. The German side, I think, they've played some okay football, but they'll be raring to go for this, knowing that if they win this game, they'll be through to the next round in all likelihood. So I can't really make a case for any of the underdogs in this one.
Yeah, Germany were given a second life. Had Japan as $1.40 favourites beaten Costa Rica, Germany would already be virtually eliminated from the World Cup. So that just goes to show that they've got a massive opportunity. As for Japan, I agree, the emotional kind of letdown, it's going to be so hard to get up, and you've got to beat the Spain side that's going to have 75, 80% possession. The only thing that may play into Japan's favour could be if Spain take the game lightly or rest some of their best players. But again, you have the scenario where the backups are still probably, higher caliber players than the Japanese. So to beat Germany once in the group, that's huge. But to pull another monumental upset could be a bridge too far. Next group is Group F that we're going to discuss. And it's another really interesting one with many scenarios and permutations. I'll pull it up on the screen, and there it is. So we've got Canada, Morocco, Croatia, Belgium. Croatia must win or draw and match Morocco's result to top the group. Morocco, therefore, if they win and get a better result than Croatia, because Croatia does have the better goal difference, Morocco could top this group. Morocco will know they're definitely through, though, to the knockout stages with a win or draw. Or even if Belgium lose, Morocco could lose and still progress. So if you did get $3.40 on Morocco to progress, you're looking pretty good. If you got my $11 tip on Morocco to make the quarterfinals, you're very happy because they're $1.25 to progress. But you're not happy that Japan bottled it because it was set up in a really great opportunity where Morocco could have actually been a second-round favourite. But hey, still, who knows what's going to happen. Belgium know when they play Croatia that they have to win. They're coming off a loss against Morocco. And in fact, Belgium could still top this group if they win and Morocco doesn't. Again, I'm sorry, I'm sure this is clear as mud, but obviously check out the table for yourselves, guys, as well. And Tom, when you talk about these games, again, you can talk about it in the context of what teams need out of it. Where do you want to begin? Canada, Morocco? How do you see it?
Yeah, Canada, Morocco is an interesting one because with Canada, the way they played that game against Belgium, I think everyone in the world wanted to give them at least 1 point, if not all three. And you've now got a situation where Canada are already out the tournament. Aside from Qatar, they're the only side that's been mathematically eliminated. So there's two trains of thought that come to mind with how Canada could perform here. The first is they're just going to go, we're out the tournament, who cares? Let's just go for broke. And they're going to play with no real fear. And that can be quite dangerous when the team plays with nothing to lose. Or they could play with the attitude of, well, we can't get through to the next round. And it could show Morocco could just be more hungry. I think Canada, they're a young team. They've impressed throughout the last 12 or 18 months. I don't think Canada are going to go out and put in a poor performance. I do think Morocco will get either a draw or a win from this game, but I don't think Canada are going to roll out an awful performance. So I think Morocco are looking quite good for your bet of the quarterfinals. I think depending on what happens in the group next to them, they're going to be a reasonable chance in the round of 16, so long as they get there. Croatia, Belgium. This is a fascinating one. Croatia, they got that win against Canada. I think most people were going for the underdog in that one, and there was a lot of bets on Canada. And they went a goal down pretty quickly, and you thought, oh, this could be it for Croatia, and they came out and they sent a little reminder to everyone that they're not done. Belgium, I gave them, a pretty glowing endorsement last week, and then they put in an awful performance. There's stories going around that there's fighting within the dressing room. Kevin De Bruyne, said we're too old to win the World Cup. I understand that comment was a sarcastic one, but you do wonder how much of it is sarcastic and how much of it is him actually buying into that. I think with Belgium, this is a backs against the wall game for them. They're good enough to win this game. I just don't know if they've necessarily got the temperament. I just wonder. I look at a lot of these players and I wonder if they're more interested in, their club careers at this point in time. I think Kevin De Bruyne has been well under performing at this tournament. Obviously, it's not just him in this team, but as a senior player in the team, he needs to take some accountability for it. So I think Croatia are a more united side, and I think they're a more fired up side. So it's hard for me to see Belgium winning this game. I hope Belgium get through because I had them in a few futures to top the group and to make the round of 16. But I'm almost starting to chalk those off as losses. But you never know with Belgium. They do have 4 world-class players within that squad. And I do think they do have more world-class players than Croatia even now. So if Croatia play like they did in the first game against Morocco and Belgium can just use a bit of their old school experience, then maybe they can get that 1-0 result. But it's hard to see it, and I'd be leaving that game.
Is one of those 4 world-class players Eden Hazard?
Yeah, I still think it's a tricky one because with him, he's obviously done all of these world-class things in the past. So he's obviously not at that level he was when he was at Chelsea. And with him, players like that, they do have the ability from time to time to, throw it back and show the world how good they really are. Like Ronaldo, for example, I think I wouldn't call Ronaldo world class anymore. I think Ronaldo's a good player, but he's not great anymore. And I think that's shown in the last 6 months. Obviously, Eden Hazard's performing at a lower level than what Ronaldo has been. But, Hazard does have that experience. He is a leader. It wouldn't surprise me if he just manages, if he takes the attitude of this is probably my last ever big game for Belgium. I want to leave it all out there. You just never know. There could be some magic with him and De Bruyne. I do worry a bit about Lukaku's fitness. Like he just doesn't look himself, but he is still a world-class striker on his day. So fading Belgium could be tempting fate. But I think this game is one you just sit back and you watch and try and enjoy as much as possible.
Yeah, it's going to be such a good one to watch. And Belgium, maybe the ability's there, but whether they've all come together for this tournament. I asked about Eden Hazard because there's a comment there, and because I think he kind of sums up the team and that, like, he's one of those players who is past his prime. And that is something that we cautioned in the tournament preview. And I actually said the same thing about Croatia. So that was my reasoning for liking Morocco, that I thought both these sides that are meeting on Friday morning are golden generations, but not in their prime. Now, that's certainly been the case with Belgium, been far from their best, but Croatia kind of proved me wrong. They looked really good in beating Canada. Was it, I think, 4-1 in the end. Mm-hmm. So Croatia, they're in a much stronger position in this one, and they're playing better football. But as you say, maybe on paper, Belgium's got the higher level of talent, and I just find it awesome that any really 3 teams could still top this group. So it's really all to play for there. And and then, the winners, the teams that progress from Group F are going to run into the likes of Spain and Germany as well. So it sets up some thrilling second round encounters. Let's move to Group G, where we've got another scenario where a side is virtually already locked in, and that is Brazil, pretty much going to finish top no matter what happens, unless they are upset by Cameroon, who are like $12 underdogs. Switzerland plays Serbia and will get through with a draw or win, whereas Serbia, similar to the kind of Australia-Denmark, Serbia must get the outright win. How do you see these ones? Start with Brazil, the tournament favourites, against Cameroon, who got a thrilling point this morning, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah, Cameroon were good value for their point this morning. When they went down by 2 goals, I was thinking, oh God, this is going to be a blowout. This isn't great at all. But, credit to them. They showed a bit of resolve. They got 2 goals, and I think they were probably the more likely side to end up getting the winner. I think it was a really impressive performance from them. It is one thing then to go and play against Brazil. Brazil so far in this tournament they haven't really, against Serbia in that last 30 minutes, they were really good. Against the Swiss this morning, they didn't really hit the heights that, Brazil would expect. But Switzerland are a very good defensive side, and they still got that result, obviously without Neymar. So Brazil have looked good. Like I said, they haven't, faced a shot on target yet. I think Brazil will take this game with the attitude of, let's get another win on the board. I don't think Brazil are necessarily going to go look to blow them off the park like 4 or 5-0. I think they'll be happy just to win 2 or 3-0. I do think Brazil are looking very good in defence. Like, they've obviously got Casemiro, who's playing at a really strong level. I struggle to see how Cameroon are actually going to score on Brazil, especially if the Cameroonian manager persists with not starting Akubar. So I think Brazil to win to 0 is a solid bet here. Even with Brazil already being through, I think they're a lot more disciplined and professional than they have been in previous years, and I think they know the importance of defence and keeping clean sheets as much as possible. And especially when Neymar's out, I think Brazil are going to have to be a bit more conservative in their approach and not look to blow teams off the park. So I do think Brazil to 0.
How about the other game, which is kind of like knockout phases starting early, Serbia-Switzerland?
Yeah, so Serbia-Switzerland, I thought it would be a case of both teams would be coming into this on 3 points each. However, Serbia let themselves down last night and left 2 points on the table. And the result of that is they now have to go and win this game. When they were up 3-1, the situation was actually quite different. They would have been going into that game only needing a draw because they would have had a better goal difference. So Serbia have let themselves down big style. This is going to be a tight game. I think Serbia's defence isn't fantastic. Switzerland's defence is their strong point. Switzerland's attack isn't amazing, but they do have 1 or 2 players up front who can cause problems. Brian Bolo, I think he can be a bit of a handful, and if Switzerland look to park the bus, they can use him to get themselves out of trouble, and he can very easily cause Serbia a problem. I think here, head to head, I do actually think the wrong team is favoured. I would have Switzerland as favourites, and that's the reason why I gave Switzerland out as the best bet. In these tournaments, defence generally gets you further than attack. So I haven't seen anything from Serbia to suggest that they can beat Switzerland. I don't have an official play on this, but I'd be pretty happy if I was Swiss going into this game.
The Swiss held Brazil to 0. I know they didn't get a shot themselves, but held Brazil to 0 until about the 85th minute this morning, wasn't it? So that match is Saturday morning. We've gone slightly out of order because we've tried to go mostly alphabetic order through the groups, but they are staggered 2 groups per day. But for whatever reason, sometimes the not necessarily the next letter in sequence might play earlier that morning. So that's the case with this being 5 or 6 a.m. Aussie time. The Group G encounters earlier that morning on Saturday morning would have been Group H, which is the final group to discuss, where Portugal are virtually locked in top with 6 points. Ghana must draw or win to get through. Is that right? Have they got the advantage?
Ghana just need a draw.
Yes, so Ghana can draw or win to get through. Uruguay has to win. And also, they've got to hope that South Korea don't win. And that's right, Uruguay is in a bit of strife, obviously, after the loss this morning to Portugal. So that's why Ghana does have the advantage, although Uruguay are $1.68 favourites. South Korea not out of it. They would have to upset Portugal. Again, could Portugal be resting stars? South Korea $5 underdogs in that one. And they'd have to hope Ghana doesn't win. So again, it's kind of all to play for the sides outside of Portugal in terms of who's going to join them in the knockout phases. What do you reckon?
Yeah, so Portugal, South Korea, I've got a best bet of over 2.5 goals in that game. Essentially, the way I see that game is South Korea generally are a pretty defensive side. They have to go for it in this game. Portugal are a very good attacking side. I think naturally Portugal, even if this game, they needed to win or draw to go through, I think Portugal would still try play football. I don't think the players that they've got, it's really in their DNA to sit back. Their defence, Portugal, isn't overly spectacular. So I do think this is the type of game where you're likely to see a few goals. South Korea, if they do go for it, they're going to leave themselves open to a very strong Portuguese attack. Portugal scored 3 goals in both games so far. They've got multiple goal scorers across the field. If they go up 1-0, I don't see them taking the foot off the gas. I think they'll still kind of build up a bit of momentum. Momentum's going to be important, going into the knockout stages. So I like over 2.5 here. That's paying around $1.95.
And a play on Ghana, Uruguay, or lean in that one?
Yeah, so Ghana, Uruguay. I was quite big on Uruguay coming into this tournament. And Uruguay, to me, have played okay for about maybe 30 minutes of this tournament. And then the other 150, 160 minutes, they've just been very poor. It's very confusing what they're actually trying to do. I think the coach for Uruguay has had an absolute shocker. Some of these starting lineups have made no sense. Some of these tactics make no sense. This morning, they were good for about 15 minutes. They hit the post, and they look like they could possibly go on and get an equaliser. Perhaps there's an argument to be made for Uruguay. They've been a bit unlucky this tournament. They've hit the post 3 times. I think that's probably the most in the tournament. So another day, another game, they could be sitting in quite a different spot. But again, Uruguay, a bit like Denmark, they're going to go into this game as favourites. But they're going to come up against a side who are defending something for their lives. No one really gave Ghana a chance of being in contention to make it through to the next round. I was one of the people who actually said they're one of the worst teams in the tournament. I stand by that. But football is a funny sport, especially when, it just comes down to one game. I do think Uruguay will win this game, but I'm not overly convinced, so I'll leave it.
And I did tip pre-tournament South Korea to finish second. Now, that was $4.50, which isn't fantastic odds at this point because they will need to win their game and also hope that Ghana doesn't. But that's still in play. Interesting stat on Uruguay. Only 2 out of the 32 teams at the World Cup haven't scored a goal yet, I believe. Uruguay being one of those, despite the fact, as you said, they've hit the post 3 times. I believe the only other side yet to score is Tunisia because they played such a great defense on Saturday night. And that's our view on the next 16 games to come. So as just mentioned, the mighty Socceroos up the Socceroos again this week, Thursday morning. Good luck for all your punts. Obviously up our 26-1. We need the Dutch to get up tonight. We need USA to progress to the knockout stages. We'd love to see a couple of Asian and African sides and North American get through to the round of 16 to give ourselves a chance of hitting that final leg of the 26-1. And good luck to everyone else that's riding all various futures, whether you cooked up something custom thanks to Toppy or just riding any of the pre-tournament markets. Thanks for joining me again, Tom. It's been great fun to talk about this tournament, which has been absolutely fantastic so far, and also look ahead and try and make our predictions. And we love to hear what you guys reckon as well, and we'll respond in the comments too. So enjoy, best of luck, punt responsibly as always, guys. And we're going to be back Saturday. So we wouldn't usually do a pod Saturday, but Saturday at this same time, because these games all wrap up Saturday morning, and then Sunday morning it's on in the knockout stages. So the early, the group A's and B's and C's and D's, start to hook up straight away. So there's no rest. So we're going to get in there and preview the knockout stages on Saturday night. So you can watch or listen to us then. We hope you have a good week. Cheers, guys.